So what have you got for us this week, Ray?
This week we checked out L'Illusionist, or The Illusionist. Now, some of you might have been lucky enough to catch this at the cinema, but for the rest of us, we'll have to make do with the recent DVD release. Now, the film is based on an unproduced, semi-autobiographical script by a French mime, director, and actor, Jacques Tati. Now, the film also stars an animated version of himself. So, it's set in 1956. We follow the story of a struggling illusionist who visits a small community where he meets a young lady who is convinced that he is a real magician.
Yes, it's quite a romantic story.
It is.
Not that it's about a couple, rather it's more the relationship between a father and a daughter.
Yes.
It could have come out a little creepy. You know, old guy rocks up, enchants young girl who then follows him to Edinburgh, but instead it kind of feels like they needed to find each other to kind of progress along.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting that they explore this kind of relationship, because instead of the predisposed contemporary view of that there's always something ominous underlying something innocent, we get something that's just beautiful and a different kind of relationship to explore, which is really refreshing.
Yes.
Now, the film is directed by Sylvain Chomet, who in 2003, some of you might remember, gave us the triplets of Belleville.
Must see, in my view.
Yes, and from me as well. But the cast is not your typical Hollywood voice sensation. Instead, Chomet chooses a stylistic choice of voice to reflect the beauty of this film, which has been created by over 80 animators.
That's an amazing amount of people working on
No,
this.
it is.
And it works out. It's such a charming looking film. I really,
Yes.
really like the style. It's almost like a picture book has come to life. I mean, we're so used to seeing animated films that are created so that they look as real as possible.
Yes.
It's really nice to come across something that's like this. And it's almost like a watercolor palette. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I thought so too. It's very much like a watercolor painting. It's very beautiful, and I'm glad you brought that thing up about the picture book, because it definitely evoked that feeling with me too. Now, I was expecting a film with more dialogue. However, the film asks you to use your own imaginations to create the dialogue for yourself. Now, this is really wonderful, but how do they do this? Most of the film is told through the fading art forms of mime and commedia dell'arte and puppetry. And what this does is it creates a sensation of your childhood fascinations all over again. But it does require you to be really pay attention to the detail in it. It requires audience participation. So if you're the kind of person who wants to just put this on and switch off, I don't think it's going to be for you.
No. So at times there's only a little bit of French or Gaelic
Or
that's
gibberish.
actually heard. Or gibberish.
Yes, which is very funny.
It is. And it's not actually subtitled.
No.
So although you don't really know what's going on, you don't need the subtitles. The animation is so precise that you get it. You know what's happening.
Exactly, and that's what it reflects, is that what do you really need to tell the story? I thought that was wonderful. It's so economic, essentially.
Yes. I also like the controversy that kind of surrounds this film a little. Like, did Tati write this as an apology to his oldest daughter, Helga?
I don't know. It definitely had an apology sort of feel to it.
Yeah, but there's also the idea that he wrote it originally to be a live-action film that he indeed was going to act in with his youngest daughter, Sophie.
Yeah, well, regardless, the animated film really does pay a sort of homage to Tati. He's definitely referenced as well. Chomet is definitely respectful of him. There's a moment when the Illusionist is going into a cinema, and what is playing on the screen is the real-time action of Mon Oncle, which Tati happens to be starring in.
Yes.
But now, what did you think of the sound?
I thought it was absolutely enchanting.
It was. For me, it was like this beautiful little dance underlying the entire thing. It was really lovely.
It really was, but there was also quite haunting moments as well in it.
Yes, it does have some serious undertones. It's quite melancholic in many respects. The film strikes a fine line between the tragedy and comedy of losing hope. Now, this is the best example of that is probably through the supporting characters. You see, the Illusionist stays in a hotel which is full of these uncommissioned artists who are all struggling to make their own way through their various, art forms. Now, we've got a gymnast trio who have to work in advertising, a destitute ventriloquist who...
When I see his puppet, in the window of the pawnbrokers. I actually welled up. That really upset me.
It is very sad.
It's
Did you
really
notice that
sad.
the pawnbrokers was called Brown and Blair, which
Yes.
happened to be the two former Labour PMs of England? I thought that was a very interesting choice. Okay. Then there's the clown drunk upstairs, who I couldn't help but laugh at, with the little flour on his vest as he squirts it all over his face to try and clean it.
I felt really terrible for the clown, and I'm a little afraid of them, but I did feel really bad for him. I actually breathed a sigh of relief when Alice arrived at just the right moment with a bowl of stew for him.
But we're not going to tell you about that. We won't reveal it all. But now the film is not all gloomy. There's plenty of humour riddled throughout it, whether it be a simple observation of human behaviour or a particular character.
Like the Scottish guy.
Yes, all Scotsman.
He's hilarious.
He is, yes.
But I also loved that he had this amazing faith in Tati Chef, in his art.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I love the moment when he took the Illusionist up the hill to show him the seascape, and then he fell flat on his face before roly-polying back down the hill.
Yes. There is also actually a little Easter egg at the end of the credits with our little Scottish friend in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of little gems in this film, actually. If you keep a keen eye, you can see a number plate on a car that passes by that says FU2 Bush. And there's also the Illusionist. He's standing in the middle of the road, bracing himself toward the car lights are coming toward him, except they part ways and go past him because they're actually motorcycle headlights and not a car. Well, this is actually a reference to Buster Keaton in the 1924 film Sherlock Jr.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's also a moment in the Scottish pub. There's a character in the foreground, around about the middle of the frame, that is actually the young girl and old woman optical illusion. It's just amazing what they pack in there. So there's a lot of little gems to keep your eye out for.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think about the film in total, though, Sonia?
In total, I don't think it was quite as good as The Triplets of Belleville. I adored that film, but
Yes.
this is still a great film. I love the animation style. I like the
beautiful.
watercolor. It's such a beautiful film, and it's accessible for any age, which
It
is
is.
wonderful. So for me, I think this is a buy. I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was just charming, like I said.
Well, I almost agree with you.
Hey, come on.
Well, I don't know. I want to be able to watch it again. I want to feel compelled to watch it again. And unfortunately, although it is a beautiful film, I think it's lovely in its own right, but I also like how it pays homage to those old storytelling techniques of old. But for me, I just wanted more drive behind it. I wanted a change of pace. It felt a little too sentimental. Now, my problem is not with how Chaumet told the story, but rather what the story was that he chose to tell. So for you guys at home, I'm gonna have to say borrow.
Thanks, Ray.
No worries. I'm just being fair.
I know you are.
All right.